Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today I'm going to go through a wish list for 2023 for Elder Scrolls Online. And if you've watched any of my other content, I like doing thematic builds or creating different characters. And I play very off meta. I like to create a character, then figure out if this character were in the game, what abilities would they use, what class would they be, what gear sets would they run, you know, and then try and play that way. And so I put myself at a disadvantage a lot of the times trying to play that way, and I don't enjoy playing absolute top tier or the sweaty matches. It's just not enjoyable. I don't like running meta stuff, and most of the stuff that I run won't be successful in group play or meta. Now I do have a staple set of characters that are built for meta and built to fight outnumbered in 1vx. Mostly my Kratos builds. But anyways, 2023, here's what I wish for through the course of this year. Now I know that here in about an hour and a half they're going to do a live stream, Bethesda is, on Twitch, and I believe what they're going to announce is that they're doing spell crafting. And then maybe there's an off chance that they introduce a harder overland, you know, like a platinum, Cadwell's platinum or something to that effect as well, because a lot of people have been asking for harder overland. But it looks to me, based off of some leaks and everything else, that it's probably going to be spell crafting, and so we'll see what happens with that. But here is my primary concern with Elder Scrolls Online. We've got a lot of people leaving the game or have left the game, and I'm sure somebody in the chat is going to say, boo-hoo, just leave the game, and this video isn't for you, so you can just get out of here. This video is for the people that love this game and love the community, and they want to see the devs and the company do right by the player base that has been here for years. I've been here since beta, and a lot of people that I know have left because of the direction of the game. So let's stop the bleeding as far as that goes. Let's stop making decisions that are silly or upsetting the player base. It makes zero sense. It's not a sustainable business model, and hopefully they are feeling that. And so anyways, here is my laundry list of things, and my primary concern is this, that we're going to make this announcement. There's going to be huge hype around the spell crafting, right? And second quarter we're going to get the new whatever, and then third quarter we're supposed to fix things. We know there is a track record, and you can go back and look from 2 years ago. I have videos from 2 years ago of block bug, heavy attack problems, not being able to break free. This is from 2 years ago. This has been an ongoing problem for 2+ years, and it's still in the game. And it's because we keep adding the next new greatest thing. Spellcrafting is going to be that next new greatest thing. This is my hot take. I think that this is going to be, a lot of people are excited for this. I haven't seen them implement new things into the game in at least 2+ years that hasn't brought bugs into the game that are still here. They're still here. And so let's go through this list here real quick. We've got the block bug, and there's a different iteration of the block bug. I was just running around with Mace Windu. I was just running around with my Beetlejuice, and you get this block bug, and you are unable to there's a couple different ones. You're either unable to break free, and you're stuck in this never-ending loop, and you just have to finish the battleground, not able to use abilities or break free. Another one is block mitigation just simply isn't working at all. You're holding block and taking 100% damage. So there is a problem with block, and there has been. Okay. Another thing is the buff tracker. It's a built-in systems, built-in thing in ESO, and the buff tracker is not working when you pop a potion. It will actually clear some of your buffs, and so we need to fix the buff tracker so it's actually showing properly. Now, I have the buff trackers or the buff icons showing up, and so I can see that the buff hasn't fallen off. What I'm referring to is the timer above your action bar that shows you this buff is still running or whatever. And so that's just clearing out completely when you pop potions sometimes or use certain abilities. Another thing is the heavy attack bug. You get stuck in a heavy attack animation, and I'm not just talking about the overload or the sorcerer animation. I'm talking about like you're heavy attacking with dual wield, heavy attacking with two-hand, heavy attacking with stabs, resto. You get stuck in the heavy attack animation and your character just continually cycles through heavy attacks. Now talking about overload, there's 3 specific types of bugs with that, maybe more. The first overload bug for a sorcerer is you get stuck in the ult. So you click on the ultimate, now you're firing away light attack lightning bolts, or you're doing heavy attack lightning bolts. You cannot trigger off of it. It runs it dry, and then you get locked up. Your character gets locked up and you're not able to use abilities or any ults moving forward. You don't even gain ultimate. I have video of this. This is a thing. If you haven't experienced it, I spend almost all my time in PvP, whether it be Battlegrounds or Imperial City or Cyrodiil. So it's happening in those moments. So another thing is, if you're channeling a lightning heavy attack, you will get stuck in the lightning heavy attack and it'll do a similar thing. It just locks you out. Now if you run your ultimate dry while channeling a heavy attack with overload, you'll get stuck, and the same thing happens. Can't use abilities, can't use the ultimate. Now and I don't know if it's because you're taking a stun or a CC as it happens and it desyncs you, but it's happening. Another thing is you get the UI or animation bug. So you're channeling a lightning heavy attack, overload heavy attack, right? So you look like Emperor Palpatine, and after it's expired, you still have lightning shooting out of your hands. You'll put your hands down your side, you're running around the battleground, you're running, you're slowed, you're permanently slowed too. So it's acting like you're still channeling the overload channel in a heavy attack, and you can only move at that slow speed the rest of the battleground. There's no way to shut it off. Reload UI does not work. And I guess there's a fourth for the overload, and the fourth is the slow bug. And the slow bug can happen from time to time just on its own. And basically, you don't get caught just in like a walk, you get caught in like 20% less than a walk speed, and there was no way to clear that, and so I don't know. In Cyrodiil, I'm still occasionally getting the 49,000 days of whatever debuff, so 49,000 days of burning, 49,000 days of diseased or poisoned, and that has been there for 2 years. I literally did a video on that 2 years ago on my channel, and it's still there. Dodge roll is not dodging direct damage attacks, so I could be mid dodge roll and still get hit with reverse slice, like an execute or an executioner, sorry. I can still get hit with a spec bow. Now most really skilled Nightblades, and we just had Nuff, who's a Twitch streamer and a really good PvPer, he said, yeah, it's common knowledge, like if I want to hit my spec bow and someone dodge rolls, I'll wait until they're right in the middle of their dodge roll, and it's a guarantee, it'll guaranteed hit them. So okay, so dodge roll is not blocking direct damage attacks. I'll be dodge rolling and still taking damage, so come on. Lightning staff empower buff. So supposedly they removed the empower buff from PvP, but it is still in PvP, and I have screenshots of this, and I myself have experienced this. But the splash damage, while say a sorcerer has the empower buff going with the lightning staff, if there's any mobs around you, NPCs around you, they're hitting that mob for plus 80% on their lightning staff heavy attack. And if they have CP put into it too, it's just really, really heavy, right? Well, that splash damage is hitting the players for 80% as well. I personally got hit with 30k from a lightning staff heavy attack, and we've got people that have screenshots of 42k. So if you're going to remove Empower from PvP, remove Empower from PvP. And I actually called that before it happened. I said, you watch, it'll still work. We just wait until players are around NPCs and the splash damage will hit players, and sure enough, it's a thing. Another thing is we have elemental damage or environmental damage in Battlegrounds. I just did a video on this a week ago. This has been a thing for 2 years plus, and you could be at full health mid-fight and not near a ledge and take a CC and take 27, like it'll just one-shot you. 30k environmental damage. Okay, so we need to figure out what is doing that and fix that. It's super annoying. It's been in the game for 2 years. Unable to respawn in BGs. I've got people that are sending me videos and sharing videos that they get killed and they're dead on the ground and the respawn timer runs to 0 and they're never able to respawn. They just sit there and then they get kicked out of the game, and they get the deserter debuff. So another thing that's a problem in ESO is the queue. There's a problem with the queues. So sometimes they get bugged, or you're in queue with some friends and it will drop you. It'll drop you from the group. So say we all get into a battleground, and after the battleground's over, we're exiting, and it will just randomly dissolve the group, or disband the group, or it'll drop specific players from the group. And so that needs to be fixed, the dropping group or dropping party queue. Another thing too is if you're in the group and you're queuing in, going into a battleground, some people are just randomly dropped from the party or dropped from the group and don't get queue. And then if you're mid-transport as well, like if you're porting to a city or something, and I know somebody's going to be like, well, just don't teleport while you're, like, I get it, okay? Let's fix it, though. Like, it's been recognized as a problem, and people are still trying to play the game while they're waiting in queue, and we literally have no clue how long it's going to take. It could take 45 minutes for queue to pop. I'm not going to just stand around twiddling my thumbs waiting for queue, by chance the queue pops. Allow us to play the game while we're waiting in queue and not wait 45 minutes just to get kicked from the group or not get the queue pop because I was teleporting somewhere to go do Ritz or whatever. So another thing is CCs are broken in the game and have been for a long time. And especially with the ice staff, we need to fix the ice staff. I shouldn't be able to put the elemental blockade on the ground and get immobilized, and then as soon as I break free or dodge roll out of that, I'm immobilized again. Like, soft CCs and hard CCs are broken. I just did a battleground where I got stunned 3 times in a row, and well, technically I got stunned 4 times. I got stunned, hard stunned, broke free, got hard stunned, broke free, got hard stunned, broke free, got hard stunned again, could not break free, and got killed. Fix that. Come on. Hard CCs and soft CCs are broken in your game, and you need to fix them. And we're going to release the next new greatest thing, and all of this stuff is we're going to find this 2 years from now. That is my hot take. Every single one of these things that I listed, it's going to be a year or 2 still in the game, you know. And so it's extremely frustrating and annoying because I've done videos on this 2 years ago, and I really hope that the devs of this game start listening to people. I'm not trying to bash the game when I say this. These are problems, and if you go through and start eliminating these problems before we release the next new greatest thing, you will retain players. You will not retain players if the game does not work properly. You will only bleed players. They're going to get to a certain point where these are a problem and you can't compete in PvP on a competitive level. Your PvEers might not ever notice any of this stuff, and I think they said 95% of their game is overland content and dungeons, and they're not going to release any more of that. There is no better time than to address this stuff, because what will happen as you're not releasing new stuff and you're supposedly fixing the game and the content gets stale, people will gravitate into PvP until they hit that plateau and start recognizing these things and like, hold up, this game is broken. Well, welcome to the party, because we've been here for 2+ years, okay? So, I love this game. I want this game to work. It's extremely annoying when it does not work, and so I go play other things, and a lot of other people have been, okay? That's my rant. Fix the game, please. I'm really worried about this video or this live stream that is coming out here in an hour and a half. We're gonna announce spellcasting, the next new greatest thing. It's going to introduce even more bugs that's already in the game, and we're not going to get around to this stuff until third quarter or next year, or next thing you know, we're 2 years from now, and none of this has been addressed. Fix the game, please. Okay? Hybridization and balancing. Here's some other problems with the game. This is my laundry list of things for 2023 that need to be looked at. Hybridization needs to be balanced. The problem with introducing armor sets and mythics to the game that are not balanced in themselves, they make up for the shortcomings of classes. So the very first thing we have to do is go into every class and look at the class tooltip. And I'm not talking about homogenizing all the classes and making all the classes the same. Someone will say that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the unfair advantage of certain classes currently in the game. That is not balanced, okay? Most classes have access to a burst heal, instant burst heal, okay? We need to make sure that all classes have access to an instant burst heal, okay? That, you know, it's not a channeled effect, you can't be stunned while you're casting it, whatever else, and it needs to have both a magicka and stamina version, viable magicka and stamina version, right? When we're talking about hybridization balancing, what we're looking at, Malcolm did an amazing video on this, and he's like, we have one option that everyone drives to when it comes to morphs in the game, and then the other one is obsolete. Like, virtually nobody runs it. Why would you ever run that when this is the other one? That's a lack of balancing. It steers people towards a particular thing. And so while you can play the way you want, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage to do that, which is just what I do a lot, and it's rough. It's frustrating when you add the compounded bugs in the game and things not working properly. If everything were balanced and none of these bugs existed, putting myself at a disadvantage to try new things would be a little bit more palatable, a little bit more easy to do. It's really, really rough right now. You have to be wearing Mara's Balm in this meta for the most part, or wearing a lot of things on certain classes just to be carried by the armor set. And so hybridization at the class level needs to be balanced, okay? Then we need to look at the weapon skill lines, and some people are like, well, there's different morphs that allow you to do different weapons and stuff like that, but predominantly magic, like the stabs, are a magic ability heavy class line or skill line, right? And two-handers are physical, dual wield is physical, bow is physical. We need to get another magic weapon skill line, like if it's a wand or something like that. That said, here I'm introducing something new before these things get fixed. I want these things to get fixed first before we look to do that, but we need to have another weapon skill line that's magic based, similar to the staff, and in the one hand line. So if it's an orb or a whatever, I don't know. Okay, but hybridization needs to start at the class level, and we need to make sure that the classes are balanced and they can have their own flair for things that they do. That will keep them from feeling homogenized, you know, everything feeling the same. And some people will disagree, and you're wrong. So, but in the way of balancing the classes, we have to start there. And then the next thing is we have to stop introducing broken sets. Is There No One Else just did an amazing video that talks about you know, like Mara's Balm being problematic. Like, we had 3 or 4 months of like almost flawless like when they changed the servers or they upgraded the servers on PCNA, flawless gameplay in Cyrodiil during prime time. And it was right around the time Mara's Balm was introduced, and he made this connection, and I was like, you know what, he's right. Mara's Balm is doing a check on how many dots and removing the dots and implementing a heal and doing all this stuff. I think what they need to do is take a long, hard look at these new greatest armor sets, and they need to kind of chill on that. Stop releasing the next new broken armor set to the game that's going to carry classes and avoid what needs to happen. We need to dial back, balance the classes, then balance the weapon skill lines, balance the other skill lines, and then start really evaluating armor sets that are coming into the game, okay? So another thing that is a massive problem in ESO, and when we rewind back to the armor sets being implemented like Dark Convergence and Plague Break, keep in mind Dark Convergence and Plague Break, I'm not against them in their they're fun to play with, but it feels cheesy when I kill a group. Here's the thing. I'm an old school PvP mindset. I think that people need to focus on the function of PvP, like how to maintain your buffs, how to rotate, like have a good offensive rotation, a defensive rotation, maintain your CCs, soft CCs and hard CCs on a target, make fights, controlled fights, and there's a sweet art of PvP there, right? And I teach individuals and guilds about this stuff, and we move farther and farther away from the mechanics of PvP when we have things like Oaken Soul, when we have things like Mara's, when we have things like Dark Convergence and Plague Break, okay? And if you go 90% of the PvP videos that you'll see right now 1vxing, almost all of them are using Plague Break or Dark Convergence, right? Or the combination of both. And they're grouping large groups together out in Cyrodiil and blowing them up, right? And so that's really cool, but I want to see the fight happen, and then somebody's going to say, well, that person's never going to beat that group. That's not true. There are 1vxers that are out there every day that aren't using those sets and killing those groups, okay? I've done it. A lot of people have done it. You don't need to use those. Low skill set or low ceiling PvPers, if you throw those on, will have a little bit level of success, but fast forward 2 to 3 years from now, you're going to start being frustrated when every time you run into a 1v1 you can't win. It's because you'll never learn the mechanics of PvP. How to maintain your buffs, how to maintain your CCs, how to make it a resource fight, how to turn a fight, you get burst on, and how do you fight back from the fight. And that adds immense frustration. I've literally had people say I've wasted the last 5 years of my life in PvP in this game running around with a ball group or running around with a group because I still can't fight one-on-one, you know, against even average players. I can't hang. And so I feel like the devs or the ZOS are trying to, you know, make the game accessible, right? That's the word of the year last year. They're trying to make the game accessible to more people, and they did the opposite of that. That's not even up for debate. They did the opposite of that. But overall, they did the opposite of that. But they're hindering their players' ability to, or need to, learn the mechanics of PvP, right? There's armor sets that absolutely carry them and stuff like that, okay? Plague Break and Dark Convergence were added to the game under the premise that these sets are being added to combat ball groups. The reality of it is, and the most frustrating thing for me, is this. You control the livelihood of ball groups, ZOS, devs. You control the livelihood of ball groups. Because we went from 20, what was the group size, 20 something? We went from 20 something down to 12. What I propose for PvP group play, and hear me out before you complain about this, because a lot of people actually agree with this when you hear every aspect of this. Number one, I think group sizes should be bumped from 12 to 6 in Cyrodiil, okay? If you bump group sizes or not and make them 6 instead of 12, there's going to be some people that say, well, no, I can't play with my friends. No, you can. You can only group up to a maximum of six, but you guys can run side by side, your two groups. That's fine. And preventing you from playing with your group, most of the time you're in Discord, like you're in voice chat with your guildies. So even though they're in group 2 running side by side with you, you're still playing with them. They're just not in your group. They're in the group next to you. Okay, so I would lower the group size to 6, and here's why. Cross healing and heal stacking is a major problem in PvP. And ultimately, the reason that Plague Break and Dark Convergence were added to the game, we need to be able to have a way to kill ball groups. You want to be able to kill ball groups? Make it to where they can't have 20 heals on them. And there's 12 people running around in a group, all throwing up the same heal. Let's do the math on it, okay? Let's say you have a hot, okay? You're running by yourself, and you have a hot, and that hot is ticking for 1k. We're going to use generalized, basic math here, okay? Come on. You got a 1k hot on you, and let's, for the sake of argument, say that that 1k hot is ticking every 1 second, okay? Now, 1k by itself every second might not be enough when you're under serious pressure to save you by yourself, which is why that person, when they get caught off by themselves, gets killed, by the way, okay? But in that group, they're fine. Now, let's say every other person in that group, there's 12 of you, is running that 1k hot too, and everyone's throwing that hot out to one another, okay? This is an area of effect, or it's a like rapid regen, or radiating regen, or echoing vigor, whatever hot it is, okay? Let's say all 12 people, you now have 12k health coming in every second. Maybe it's every 2 seconds, but here's the reality of it. Intermediate, or beginner to intermediate, and maybe even some advanced players aren't going to be able to burst through 12k heals coming in every 1 second. You'd have to global that person. That means your rotation had to line up and do that, chop through that. And if you don't get them killed within that 1 or 2 second window, guess what? Here's 12k heals coming in, okay? That's from one heal. Now let's throw in a second hot. Now we got 24k heals coming in every 2 seconds or every 1 second. Now let's throw in everybody sitting on a burst heal, okay? Or their class having access to a burst heal, okay? And you can cross healing. So this problem right here is called heal stacking. They're stacking the same heal, okay? What I propose, when you go down to groups of 6 instead of 12, you also eliminate heal stacking. So I can run radiating regen, that's fine. Someone can run rapid regen, that's fine. Someone else can run another class hot, that's fine. And you can have 6 variances of hots, or 6 different hots on you, and that will add to class diversity, right? Or build diversity, or play diversity, right? Now all of a sudden we have to be thoughtful in how we're building. It's not everyone run radiating regen and just make sure you hit that every 2 seconds as we're running forward, dropping our Plague Break and Dark Convergence in front of the group and just mowing everyone down, okay? We empowered ball groups when we added those armor sets to the game, and we didn't jump from 20 to 12 or less, okay? We gave the ball groups those armor sets, and we still didn't address the problem, which is heal stacking. That group is using the same heals and has 3 or 4 of the same heals ticking, and it's so much healing coming in that you cannot break through it. You actually need Dark Convergence or Plague Break to kill them. So it wasn't that they were wrong, it was that they didn't look at the problem in the right way and fix it, okay? So we need to get rid of heal stacking. You should not be able to have more than one of a particular type of heal on you, and that's going to add to build diversity and lower the groups to 6, okay? The next problem is cross healing. I shouldn't be able to say those 2 groups, we're creating this scenario, and let's say those 2 groups build optimal for what I was just talking about. They're like, we can't run the same hots, we got to run variations or different versions of hots, right? And they do that. And so now they've got a lot of build diversity within their party, and they're not heal stacking the same heals, and they're running around. And then there's a second group. Let's say the second group doesn't realize how healing works, or heals himself at all. Group 1 should not be able to heal Group 2. They're not in a party together. You should only be able to heal people that you're in a group with, okay? And I know someone else had mentioned this, and it makes a lot of sense. Hey, if I'm running through Cyrodiil and I see a guy in a fighting outnumbered, or I see a guy fighting and he needs a heal, I should be able to be the hero and throw the heal his way. I get that, but if you want to be the hero, just make sure everybody in your group stays alive, right? If you do this, what's going to happen is you're going to get more people grouping up, right? If I want to be the hero and I want to heal people, then I should group up and have people that I can be a hero to and heal. It's as simple as that. I shouldn't be able to run around willy-nilly in a massive PvP zone, being the hero to everybody and cross-healing, throwing the same heals on everyone that they already have and sitting on burst heals and stuff like that. Make people group up, you know? Otherwise you're running solo or you're running duo, and it's just on you guys, whatever you can do. I'm not saying get rid of solo and duo. I'm just saying if you want to be a hero and be a healer, have people in your group that you can heal. Get rid of cross healing, okay? Now here's what's going to happen if you do these things. If you lower the group from 12 to 6, okay, we're going to have less, the ball groups are going to be more manageable, right? It's a 6-man squad. Now, I don't doubt that we're going to run into just really, really high skill set 6-man groups. There's always going to be that. But if we run into 6-man ball groups that are used to heal stacking, their healing potential or total healing power is going to be less. Their also damage output is going to be less, okay? Let's throw that elite level group, the SEAL Team 6 guys, set them to the side. But let's talk about an intermediate group of people that are PvPing. An intermediate group of people that are PvPing are going to have less capabilities to heal themselves, but also less damage output capabilities, which means that we don't need to rely on Plague Break and Dark Convergence, right? And then we can kind of tune those armor sets, because literally, like I said, every video that's out there floating around is Plague Break blowing up groups. Those are the highlights, right? We still have an armor set that's overperforming, and we're avoiding the real thing. Now, a lot of people will say, I like that armor set, or I want to play that armor set, or why are you trying to ruin my game, or whatever. And it's like, you're the outlier. Like, those armor sets are fun or whatever, but do you like being in a group and getting blown up by Kyle next to you because Kyle cleanses Plague Break, or Kyle gets killed and then creates a chain reaction? You know, how many times for the beginner and intermediate players did you get killed by something that you didn't even know, you know, you were caught in the chain reaction? And so that's not a conducive atmosphere to learning for beginner and intermediate PvPers at all. They're dying 70% of the time to things that are uncontrollable or out of their, you know, so we need to dial this back, okay? But if we go from 12 to 6, everything becomes a little bit more manageable and a little bit easier to balance, okay? We start adding build diversity by not allowing heal stacking, and we make it to where cross healing does not exist in PvP. All of this is about PvP, not necessarily PvE. And you can do these things through the Battle Spirit passive. Group sizes are limited to 6. Cross healing does not exist in PvP. Heal stacking, you can only have one source of a named heal coming in at any time. Now, whether it runs its course, no matter who uses it, you know, I don't know how that will work, or if we just replenish it. Probably replenish it, right? So let's say by chance, if we were to follow these rules, I'm running Radiating Regen and Kyle's running Radiating Regen. My Radiating Regen, let's say I have 6k spell damage and mine's hitting really good, and let's say Kyle has 2k spell damage and Kyle casts his. the stronger of the two does it get to be, or is that adding checks and more math, or it just simply doesn't matter? It was refreshed by Kyle, and yeah, he only has 2k spell damage, so here's his super weak heal. Thank you, Kyle. We're gonna have to get you in a better build, right? I don't know, and I don't. I think all of that's still a step in the right direction, right? Lowering the groups, eliminating cross healing, and eliminating heal stacking to build into build diversity and the amount of same type heals coming in. Okay. Now, I also think that we should go and we should look at ability cast times. There is so much speed in ESO now. When you have a 0.8 second cast time on a D-swing, there are certain people you just won't land a D-swing on. They're moving way too fast, and they're out of your hitbox before that 0.8 even happens. You miss your window to even line up your rotation. So I think we can go to instant cast again on most abilities, and strictly because of how much speed's in the game, right? And to be honest, I don't know who was complaining about it. I'm sure I can envision it was a complaint like, I get killed before I even know what happens, and it's because of these instant abilities. And so people are just hitting ABC, and I get hit with all three, boom, 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 and I'm dead. And I get that, but it's not, it's more so that the abilities need to be balanced, okay? If I can hit 1, 2, 3 and it's enough damage to kill somebody, then there's probably there's at least one ability in those abilities that's probably carrying it's too heavily stacked of an ability, right? Like it's an incap, and incap is one of the hardest hitting ults in the game, the lowest costing ults in the game, silences the person if they, plus gives you a 20% damage bonus against the person that you're hitting with it. Come on, man. You know, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But ability cast times can probably be instant at this point. We just need to do a better job with balancing the abilities that are in the game. Okay? And if you take into account that group sizes are going to be less, heal stacking is going to be less, and cross healing is going to be non-existent, you can afford to make all of these abilities not god tier damage, just balance the damage output. Add their own flair, their own animation, their own whatever, but way too much speed in the game to have cast times on stuff, and it's just missing. Plus you take into account lag, latency, whatever. We don't need the cast times anymore on a lot of the abilities, so you guys can look at that. Another thing too is hard CCs and soft CCs, which this should have fallen into the bugs that need to be fixed. I did talk about it, but you can get hard stunned multiple times over and over again. You can get soft stunned multiple times over and over again. That is mechanic breaking or core combat breaking bug that needs to be addressed. And we're not looking, it's going to be a year. At this point, right now, it's going to be a year until that's fixed. That is a huge problem. This has to be top priority right now, over everything. Fix the core mechanics of combat in your game. Another thing too is, like, when we're looking at the classes and we're talking about hybridization and balancing, there's 2-3 classes that stick out specifically that really need to be looked at. Okay, the first one is Nightblade. I already talked about Incap. It's one of the lowest, or their ultimate, right? It's one of the lowest ultimate costs in the game, yet hits the hardest and gives you a 20% damage bonus against that target. Okay, and so there's a steroid built into this highest hitting and lowest cost ultimate in the game. All right, does that is not balanced. Okay, that needs to be addressed, and even Nightblade mains will tell you this reluctantly, right? The really good Nightblades, the really good people that care about the health of PvP will say absolutely that ability is stacked and has been for a long time. It's OP. Okay, Incap and the other morph need to be fixed or balanced better. You can't have a 70 ult that hits for 18k and gives you a 20% damage bonus on the target and silences them, okay, or whatever, major devile. Just shouldn't be a thing. Number 2, spec bows. So Merciless Resolve, I think, is the biggest morph, most widely used morph that people are doing. Talk about another is stacked ability, right? This thing's going to have, I think, I've got a 28k tooltip. In what world do we think that having an ability that procs after 5 light attacks and has double the tooltip of an ultimate in this game is a good idea? Like, we're missing the mark here immensely, and Merciless and the spec bows have been abused or overused or gone unaddressed for a long time. Okay, gone unaddressed for a long time. And not only that, what we're seeing is somebody going right into an in cap and getting that 20% damage bonus right into the Merciless that already had a 28k tooltip. You know, here's an extra 20% damage on top of that. And so that's a major problem in ESO. Like, we shouldn't be able to stack damage that way. Let's further add to this. Nightblades can go into stealth whenever they want. They can dictate where and when the fight is going to happen, and they get a guaranteed crit coming from stealth. Not only that, almost every Nightblade is a vampire in the game, and they're running at least Vampire Stage 2 or higher, so they get the Strike from the Shadows passive, which is an extra 200, 300 weapon and spell damage coming from stealth. Nightblade is absolutely broken and stacked. Like, we have to fix Nightblade. You cannot have a class that can go wherever it wants, dictate the fight, and have that type of nuclear capability. It's not balanced, and it's why you see 15-man groups of Nightblades running in Cyrodiil, and it doesn't matter how tanky you are, they will nuke you in a millisecond. You have to fix that. You can't let that run rampant, and we've been allowing it to run rampant in the game. And so that's immensely frustrating. Nightblades need to be addressed because mostly of those two abilities, right? Incap or its ultimate, having a really high tooltip and having the steroid attached to it, the 20% damage buff, and then Merciless Resolve. Another thing too is Merciless Resolve heals you for the damage done, or a percentage of the damage done too. Talk about a stacked ability. Here's a 28k tooltip that can get a guaranteed crit coming from stealth and heals you for the damage done. Come on. And, you know, it takes 5 light attacks for it to, you know, be a thing. And if you're dual wield, you get to those 5 light attacks much quicker than others. So needs to be fixed. Another thing is the DK. DKs right now, because of Oaken Soul and because of other things, class like armor sets and stuff like that, and class abilities, like you can stand inside your Cinder Storm or spam Cinder Storm and get stamina back. There's other people done videos on it. There's not very good balance or thought process put into the abilities and their costs and how it will affect the class. And there are people that are doing these videos that are maybe that class main or have recognized this as a problem, and I think ZOS needs to connect with these individuals and say that's a problem for PvP. It's a problem for PvP, we need to fix it in PvP. And so another thing is, let's take Talons. This has been a thing with Talons forever. Talons is both a hard CC and a soft CC in one, but you only get the immunity of one of them. And that's garbage. So what you have is, you have people that are running around with Fossilize, which the way Fossilize works is you have to break free from it, right? It's a hard CC, and they're running around with Talons. And Talons will, Fossilize is a hard CC and an immobilization. So you have to break free from it, and then you're still immobilized, and then you need to dodge roll to get out of it, otherwise you're stuck standing still, right? You get the hard CC from Fossilize, but you don't get the soft CC immunity from the immobilization from Fossilize. You should go on cooldown for both of them with that one ability, because it causes an immense resource disadvantage or advantage if you're the DK. If you're the DK and you want to put people in trouble, you're going to run Talons, you're going to run Fossilize, and then you're going to have Venomous Claw and Noxious Breath have your dots ticking on them, right? It becomes immense resource problems for them, just those abilities in that rotation. And then you throw Whip on there, and there's our setup, right? And now what'll happen is they have to break free of the hard CC from the Fossilize, then they have to dodge roll to get out of the immobilization from Fossilize, and then they get Talons. Now they're immobilized again because they didn't have immunity to begin with. So it's break free, break free, break free, or break free, dodge roll, break free. And then throw in the fact that CC immunity, hard CCs and soft CCs, is broken anyways, and you can just reapply these before the 7 and 4 second. It's not fair. It's not balanced. It's not working properly. So you have to go in and you're going to have to fix these. Fossilize, because it does both CCs, should apply CC immunity for both soft CCs and hard CCs. And if you don't do that, it's silly. It's just silly. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that, all right? We're trying to establish how the mechanics of the game work, but we're breaking those mechanics with certain abilities. So we need to look at that. And then the other thing is having Wardens with their Polar Winds scaling off of max health. And now we have these unkillable juggernauts. We're already in a CC meta, and you throw, say, Mara's Bomb, or you throw whatever. It doesn't even matter. At this point, you throw just meta, whatever, broken stuff that's not balanced on its own. And in your health pool, you just stack health, right? So now we're a 40k, 50k Warden throwing out 24k. I think Nice Gaming did this. He had like a 24k heal Polar Wind, like crit heal Polar Wind. You know, here's a full heal, hitting one button, boom. You know, and that adds to tank meta, right? Just the ability to burst heal and fight back from fights. But you have these walking juggernauts that have 40 and 50k health that it can also throw out immense healing. And Polar Wind's area of effect, by the way. So they're throwing this heal out to anyone that's within their vicinity. So not very balanced, okay? And so that's what I would address, is the Nightblades for sure. I would address the DKs and making sure that Fossilize, any ability that applies an immobilization gets that CC immunity after their break free, fixing break free as a major side point too. And anytime any class applies a hard stun, they get that immobilization or CC immunity as well. And then Wardens heal stacking off of their max health. It's just silly because we've got people just health stacking and throwing out massive heals. So it needs a, I would say heals probably needs to scale off of max stats, and your healing abilities and your heals need to scale off max stat would probably at this point be the most balanced way. Because what's going to happen is if you lean into recoveries and you lean into weapon and spell damage, your max stats will be less, which means your individual self-healing. That way we don't have it all, right? Because that's what we have in the game right now. We have people that are running around with 8, 9k weapon and spell damage, and because their heals are based scaling off weapon and spell damage, they can also heal better than most healers, okay? But if we make it max stat, their heals are based off that. Now we put them in a predicament. You want to have 8 and 9k weapon damage? Go ahead. You want to drop the house on people when you line up your burst? Go ahead. But your self heals and your ability to stay alive, you're going to need a team. Rely more on that build diversity and the people around you to keep you alive. Another thing too, I think that ZOS or the combat devs, they frown on, why do we have a game that people can 1vx and fight outnumbered and kill groups of 20? It's not, part of it is their time in the seat, and they understand fight mechanics and stuff. And I talk about this multiple times, but in PvE, the difference between 40k and 100k DPS is significant. Okay, most people, let's say on average, if you ask trial leaders, they'll say, yeah, everybody's in the 50k, or most pugs we're lucky if they're in the 50k, but there's people that are in the 100k stratosphere, right? And that difference between the average and the elite is drastic. It's double. That same discrepancy exists in PvP, their ability to understand, fight outnumbered, and heal. Okay, this is a real thing. I'm not just making this up. I've trained PvPers for 4 years, 5 years now, okay, and I've leveled over 200 characters in PvP. There's a huge discrepancy between your intermediate PvPer and their level of understanding and these 1vxers that are out there running around. But I can tell you this, if you want to affect the 1vxer and you want to make it a little bit more even playing ground, make their heals scale off of max stats, not off of weapon and spell damage, okay? And just their heals, not necessarily their damage. That makes them have to decide what they're going to do. Now finding a max stat build that also has damage is a little tougher, right? You're either max stat or you're damage or you're sustain. And then there's this gray area in between all those where you're trying to find the balance, okay? So that's 100% what I would do, is make your heals scale off max stat, whether it be stamina or magicka. And I guess the last thing is, which we've already kind of touched base on, is when we're talking about balance, it's armor balancing. And if we approach what I've been talking about in that order, right, let's look at healing, or let's look at group sizes first. And let's take our group sizes down to 6 in PvP through the Battle Spirit passive. And then let's eliminate cross healing and let's eliminate heal stacking. It's going to make people lean into different types of heals. That creates a whole different atmosphere. We won't have a tank meta where we're at right now. People will be dying. There will be build diversity. And that's what we want, right? We want the ability to kill and survive, win fights that we might not have won, or or if bare minimum have good fights. Like that was a really fun fight. It lasted a little bit. It's not because we're in a tank meta. It's because damage is balanced now, and armor sets aren't carrying the day. And I get it if the sustainable business model is releasing the next new broken armor set or mythic, so we can get the buys, we can get into people's wallets, but that's what's hurting the game. We have a PTS that content creators are going on and they're calling out this is problematic, and then actually showing it. This is problematic in PvP, and here's why. Nothing done about it. Still goes live. Gets addressed 3 months later after everybody goes and buys the thing, and and it's like all these things that I've listed to this point are reasons why people are quitting the game or not coming back from the game. These are all reasons listed, full guilds, everything. Let alone the Templar change to jabs, nobody asked for, the animation, the damage nerf, which basically really hurt the class. But all these things are like hurting the game, and then on top of that we look like we're just about that dollar. Here's the next new greatest thing that will carry the day, Mara's Balm or Plague Break or Dark Convergence or whatever, and this will change the face of PvP. And it does, for a negative. Fun to use right at the beginning, because it's silly broken or overpowered or whatever. Everyone gets it 3 months later. And so that is a black eye that ZOS continues to give themselves. Here's the next new greatest thing, and people complain about it, never gets fixed. So Plague Break, Mara's Balm, Rush of Agony. Rush of Agony, if it pulls you, it should apply CC immunity. We should not have armor sets that are breaking the core mechanics of the game. If you get yanked, you lose control of your character. That is a hard stun or a CC, right? And even if you say, well, you don't have to break free from it, it just yanks you somewhere. Who wants to play a game that you don't have control of your character? You know, who wants to play a game that you get killed and you don't know how you're getting killed and it was because of plague break? I'm running with my friends and Lisa doesn't know not to cleanse plague break and she kills all of us. It's not a conducive atmosphere. Who wants to play a game where beginners and intermediates are getting yanked over here with Rush of Agony and they don't know what's going on, and then they're getting hard, and then it happens to be a DK, right? So they Rush of Agony pull you into the middle. You take the burst damage from Rush of Agony. They fossilize you. You have to break free of the fossilize, the stun, and then you have to dodge roll to break free of the immobilization, and then they talons you and you have to break free of the talons, and and then you get leapt and whipped. Like, it's not a friendly beginner and intermediate when we're talking about making things accessible. So you want to make things accessible in ESO, let's stick to core mechanic rules of combat, right? And let's start balancing and fixing the bugs. And so that is my rant. I'm going to tune in here and watch and see what this is. It's probably spell casting or spell crafting, and overworld would be good. So, and if you're still here, thanks for listening in, and I'd love to see what your comments are on stuff like that, everything that I had discussed. But I'm a huge believer that we should get rid of heal stacking, get rid of cross healing, because that will change the face of PvP. And I also believe that healing needs to scale off of max stat, because it puts everyone in a predicament. Do I, you know, so I can't have it all. Do I lean into my weapon and spell damage and sustain? Do I lean into my weapon and spell damage and max stat, so that way my heals are adequate, and then be less sustaining in those outnumbered fights? Or do I just go sustain and damage? Or do I go sustain and max stat and be able to heal but not be able to do damage and be more support oriented? Okay, needs to happen. Is there no one else? Just an amazing video today. Jump over to his channel and look at what he hopes for 2023, and then go check out Malcolm. He's talking about homogenization and class diversity and stuff like that. He had a great video from last week or the week before. So everybody be safe out there. Bye.